Alright, so it's 2026 and you want to start your personal finances in a better spot than it was before. Hopefully, this video can help. I'm just going to jump right into it. Very first step you want is to budget and reduce expenses and set realistic goals. Getting into that. So it's fundamental to a sound financial footing is knowing where your money is going. Budgeting helps you see your sources of income less your expenses. So you should minimize your expenses to the extent practical. So housing costs, utilities, and basic sustenance are harder to eliminate than entertainment, eating out, or clothing expenses. You should look up any online tools and spreadsheets. Honestly, just write it down if you really have to. But once you figure out your budget, then you need to figure out what your goals are. Secure retirement, buy a house, save for a car, specifics that you would get on into the later steps. So that's the very foundation. It's just budgeting and reducing your expenses. So moving on, the first concrete step to take is to build an emergency fund. So the emergency fund should be a relatively liquid sum of money that you don't touch unless something unexpected comes up. Unexpected travel, essential appliance replacement, and sudden medical procedures are all examples of emergency funds in action. If you need to draw from your emergency fund at any time, your first priority, as soon as you get back on your feet financially, is to replenish that emergency fund. You treat your emergency fund right, and it's going to return the favor right back at you. Now, how do you size your emergency fund? For most people, about 3 to 6 months of expenses is going to be good. Larger emergency funds, such as 9 to 12 months, may be warranted if your income is variable or uncertain. But what if you have a credit card debt? Well, credit cards generally have very high interest rates, typically 15 to 25% APR, and that is a very significant drag on your finances. If this applies to you, you absolutely prioritize paying down the debt first. A smaller emergency fund of $1,000 or about 1 month of expenses is temporarily acceptable while paying off credit card debt or other debts when their interest rates are above 10%. And again, this is general advice. It's not a hard line in the sand, but this is more general. Speaking of advice, why should you listen to me? Well, one, disclaimer, not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but I do have a financial degree that I graduated with, and I have my SIE license, which means I was trying to become a financial advisor, but you can't get the big boy licenses without being sponsored by an actual company, and so it's kind of gatekeeping, so I can't move on, so I'm stuck with that. But I'm the closest you can find on YouTube that's not an actual licensed financial advisor. That said, you can't take my own advice. Again, do your own research. But this is what I am following. This is what I'm doing. And if you have no guideline, you could do it yourself too. So what kind of account should you hold your emergency fund in? Well, generally, emergency funds should be held in safe investments that you can liquidate in a hurry. So that means like FDIC insured savings or checking accounts are the most common choice. CDs and bonds can be used, but they're suitable for emergency savings after like a 12-month lockup period, so it's kind of dicey. I really actually wouldn't recommend. Because you also sometimes pay early withdrawal penalties for CDs or redeeming bonds. So it's like 5 years old. Look, it's weird. What you definitely should not include for the emergency fund is stocks, credit cards, home equity line of credits, or anything that's volatile in value or that can be taken away without warning, such as lines of credit. So generally, just put it in a checking or savings. Honestly, a high yield savings account is the go-to. You're going to find those online. Again, it's a Google search. Figure out what works best for you. Next step, employer-sponsored matching funds. So once you have your personal emergency fund set, the next step is to ensure you are contributing enough to your employer-sponsored retirement plan, if you have one available, and to get any matching funds from your employer if they offer them. The reason you do this before paying off high-interest debt is that Employer matching funds are risk-free, guaranteed returns on your investments at usually a higher rate than your debts. This step applies to any employer-sponsored account where the employer contributes money or matches contributions. In addition to some 401k plans, sometimes there are simple IRAs, but generally, though, check your employer 401k. If it's something more specific, then you probably would have to dig deeper research into. For example, though, generally, if your employer offers like a 50% matching on the first 6% of your contributions to a 401k, you want to make sure you're contributing at least 6% of your salary to take full advantage of the match. Instant 50% return on investment is pretty good. Honestly, holy. Be aware that 401k contributions must come from payroll deductions. So if you have a sum of money and want to take advantage of the match, you need to increase your contribution percentage from your paycheck and use your lump sum for expenses. What if your employer doesn't do a match or you don't have an employer-sponsored plan? You're going to skip that step. That's pretty obvious. What if your employer contributes to an account on your behalf, regardless of whether you contribute or not? That's pretty good. You just go through opening the account, make sure you're getting the match, and then just, again, move on. And if you're self-employed, you can make your own employer contributions to your 401k or simple IRA, but you're going to want to do that as a later down part. Next step, paying down high-interest debts. Now, after you ensure you're taking advantage of your employer match, you should use your extra money to pay down your high-interest debts. And generally, high interest is debts that are much over 4% interest rate. In all cases, you should make the minimum payments on all of your debts before paying down specific debts more quickly. There's two main methods of paying down debt. There is, what I prefer is the avalanche method, where debts are paid down in order of interest rate, starting with the debt that carries the highest interest rate. This is the financially optimal method of paying down debt, and you will pay less money overall compared to the snowball method. Snowball method is the second method. This one tends to be popular with, honestly, it seems like most people. These are debts that are paid down in order of balance size, starting with the smallest. Paying off small debts first gives people a psychological boost and improves one's cash flow situation, as paid off debts free up minimum payments. The downside is that larger loans that are maybe going to be at higher interest rates are going to be left untouched for longer, costing more in the long run. But sometimes you just need the mental boost, which is why the snowball method, while not my preferred, I can see a lot of people need that emotional benefit. For me, logically, I would want to follow the financial optimal method, which is avalanche. And for me, knowing that it's the optimal financial move makes it emotionally better for me. I just trust the numbers. But sometimes you just need to knock one off the list, so you go snowball. Both are absolutely viable. For example, you have this following situation. You have loan A, you have $1,100 with a minimum payment of $100 a month, 5% interest. And then loan B, $3,300 with a minimum payment of $300 a month, 10% interest. Suddenly, you are given $2,000. You need to first pay $100 plus $300, which is going to be your $400 monthly minimum. So that way your loan payments are recorded on time. Now the extra $1,600 can go either towards loan A, which is the smallest balance, and that's going to be considered a snowball method, where you eliminate it and you have $600 left, which goes to loan B. Or you just have all $1,600 go entirely to loan B, which is the highest interest rate, and it's going to be the avalanche method. While it's not clearing that loan, it is actually working it down, and you will save money overall. But if you need to just free up your mind, get one loan off, then you go snowball. Honestly, it is up to your preference. And you can always switch things up later. Go one way, flip to the other, however you're really feeling. Maybe you thought you could go with avalanche, but all of a sudden you're like, your mental is deteriorating. You use snowball, free it up, get better, pivot. It's all good. Should you be in a hurry to pay off lower interest loans, and what rate is low enough to where you should just pay the minimum? Depending on your attitude towards debt, you may want to stop paying more than the minimum payment on loans with low interest rates once you have paid all other loans above that threshold. A common argument is that the long-term return from investments in the stock market will likely exceed the interest rate from a low-interest loan. And while this has been true in the past, keep in mind that paying down a loan is a guaranteed return at the loan's interest rate. Stock performance is never guaranteed. Even the safest advice is technically never guaranteed. It's all an average. So the rough consensus is that loans above 4% interest should be paid off early in the debt reduction phase, while anything under that can be stretched out. Typically, stock market on average returns 10% positive, but that's on average. Some years it's negative, some years it's way over. So that's why they say you want to pay off high interest debts, and then if it's a low enough rate, you kind of leave it. So yeah, if it's anything above 4% interest, so once that's tricky. You kind of want to pay it off. Now, should you stretch out a loan to improve your credit score? No. No. Loans should never be stretched out longer than they need to be, as you should not pay a cent in interest more than you have to for the sake of improving one's credit score. Interest rate should be the sole factor in whether or not you pay extra on a loan or not. Credit score is pretty much a whole separate topic, including talking about credit cards and all of that kind of stuff. Most people have big misconceptions on what credit score is and how it works. You never want to pay extra or elongate purchases on loans or credit cards. You just pay it off as soon as possible and on time, and your credit score will reflect it. I mean, of course, there's a way to game it, but like that, if you try to elongate it, you're really just hurting yourself. You're just paying extra for no good reason. Anyway, next step. Contribute to an IRA. That's your next step for your financial guide. So you want to contribute to an IRA for the current tax year. You could also contribute for the previous tax year if it's between January 1st and April 15th. Always do your due diligence, look up information on IRAs online. Generally, though, you want to try to save up to 15% of your gross income until reaching the annual limit of $7,000 roughly. The limits change every year, or not every year, but they'll change every few years. Should you do a Roth or traditional IRA? You're gonna want to look that up on your own. I want to say though, most people generally benefit from doing a Roth IRA, where you pay the taxes now, you get a tax break later, versus traditional where you get a break now, you get to pay later. Again, Roth and traditional IRAs, a whole separate video could be done about that. So again, do your own due diligence. Why would you contribute to an IRA if you have a 401k? Well, you definitely want to do both. IRAs generally have better fund choices than an employer-sponsored plans because you can open one with the provider of your choice. There's many low-cost providers like Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab. They all offer low expense ratio index funds. However, you may swap some steps if the following is true, where your employer offers like an excellent 401k, and it makes more sense number-wise to invest in that, or you have access to like the U.S. federal government's thrift savings plan. Higher education expenses. If you will be going to college in the next few years, or if you're already in college, and you will be responsible for some college expenses like parents, scholarships, grants, etc., not covering everything, then saving for college should take precedence over saving for retirement. College savings should be placed in low-risk, low-volatility investments similar to your emergency fund. Consider whether the cost of any degree that you may pursue will help propel you into a career that is both financially and non-financially rewarding to you. And note that saving for the future education expenses of children will be another step. Both you and children can borrow for college, but you cannot borrow for retirement. Next step, save more for retirement. After you fund in an IRA, if you still have money you want to put away for retirement, then you should go back and round out your contributions to your employer-sponsored account if available, so you're contributing as much as your budget allows. Again, look up 401k plans, see what works best for you. You cannot make direct contributions to your 401k they have to come from payroll deductions. So you want to just adjust your contributions from your paycheck accordingly. Again, if you're self-employed, look into opening an individual 401k or something like that. If you're not self-employed and your employer does not sponsor a retirement account, then you're going to want to use a taxable account for that step, which is pretty much just any account you open up anywhere. Before saving for other goals, you should save at least 15% and up to 20% of your gross income for retirement. If you are behind on retirement savings, you should try to save more than 15% if you can. If you can't save 15%, start with 10% or any other amount until you're able to save more. Now, what happens if your 401k plan is awful? Should you still contribute to it? The answer is yes. You should always take advantage of your tax advantage retirement accounts before saving for retirement in a taxable account. The effect of high expenses really only starts to bite after long periods of time, and 401k plans are quite portable. After leaving a job, you can do a rollover of your employer plan into an IRA, and sometimes you can roll it into a new 401k with a new employer. Even bad 401k plans can be turned into great IRAs eventually. Pretty much the last step here is start saving for other goals. Once you're on track for retirement, there's more flexibility for discretionary income. Basic options are using tax advantage savings for anticipated future medical and education costs. So if you have an eligible high deductible health plan, HHP, and qualify for a health savings account, HSA, it's a great way to save for future medical costs. If you wish to save for college for your kids, yourself, or other relatives, you should consider a 529 fund in your state. You could also save for more immediate goals. Common examples include saving for down payments for homes, saving for vehicles, paying down low interest loans ahead of schedule, and vacation funds. You would also save more so you can potentially retire early, which you have to look up on those kind of methods. And you're only using taxable accounts after maxing out tax advantaged options. And then also you can make an impact through giving. One of the rewards of practicing a sound financial lifestyle is that giving becomes easier. If you're on top of your healthcare costs, future education costs, and you've made it out to this step, you can help make a difference for others by giving. If you can't afford to make monetary donations, there are always other ways to give. And how you order these sets of options is up to you. But generally, prioritizing the HSA, if you have a qualified health plan, and then the 529, if it's even applicable to you at all, is generally how most options will flow. The time frame for these goals would dictate what kind of account you save in. For short-term goals under 3 to 5 years, you want to use an FDIC insured savings account, CDs, or bonds. If your time horizon is longer, or you can afford to adjust your plans, you might consider something riskier like a balanced index fund or a 3-fund portfolio. Both are a mix of stocks and bonds. Again, investing in your portfolio, another whole separate video. The best savings or investment vehicle will vary depending on time frame and risk tolerance. Again, do your own due diligence, look that up, and I'll probably try and make a video about it later. Keep in mind that, especially for a young person, the more time your money has to grow, the more powerful the effects of compounding will be on your savings. If the goal is early retirement, even before the age of 59 and a half, you should definitely maximize the use of any available tax advantage accounts, which is IRA, 401k plans, HSA accounts, all that good stuff. You do that before using a taxable account because there are ways to get money out of tax advantage accounts before 59 and a half without penalty. Again, due diligence. And then if you are going to be using a taxable account for any goal, you want to have a decent grasp on asset allocation in multiple accounts and tax efficient fund placement. But that's high level-ish. You got to do your own due diligence, figure that out. But that's going to be pretty much it. Quick review, make your budget, build an emergency fund, go into your employer-sponsored matching funds, pay down high-interest debts, contribute to an IRA, save more for retirement, and then save for any other goal. That's going to be it. Catch you on the next one.